Welcome, everyone. This is Vladcast, shooting on location at my house. I'm your host, John Hill, here with my very special guest, the very Reverend Father Gregory Joyce, rector of St. Vladimir Parish in Ann Arbor and Dexter. Father Gregory, it is very nice to have you come and tape the Vladcast here at my house.
Thank you, John, for inviting me into your home.
Okay.
It's really nice to be on location.
Yeah. We are here to discuss February, the second month, and it's a month that has a lot of things going on.
It does, yeah, it really does. It's a busy month.
What would you say the biggest part of our parish life will be in February?
I think it probably has to be the visit of Metropolitan Jonah. I think when a hierarch visits a parish, it should be a time of rejoicing. It should be something really important and big, and so I think that's really going to be the highlight. And it comes at the end of the month, so it's kind of nice. We can build right up to it.
February 27th and 28th.
That's right.
So he'll be there for the Vigil, Saturday night, and he'll be there for the liturgy?
Correct.
Now, what does you said Metropolitan? What does a Metropolitan have to do at a parish church vigil, and what are the sort of optional things?
Well, sometimes actually when the bishop's visiting, he may not even do anything for the vigil. He may just stand and pray. And
where does he do that?
Usually in the altar.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a special place. You find this in cathedral churches. Sometimes there's a place on one of the cleruses that's been set aside for the bishop. I remember Metropolitan Loris would always stand on the left clerus during the services if he was not serving. And in Chicago, Bishop Peter has set up a nice place on the right clerus where he's got one of those stadia, the Greek style things that you can stand in, or it has a little seat that goes down.
Oh, yeah.
But in the parish, usually the bishop spends most of the time of the vigil in the altar. And it's a nice opportunity also for him to just pray if he would like to do that. But I think that Metropolitan Jonah will probably read the gospel at Matins, the resurrectional gospel, and anoint the people with the blessed oil.
The chair and the round rug will be used?
Yes, yep. We will have the cathedra in the middle of the church, and the bishop will be standing on the orlets. The eagle rug with the city symbolizes his reign over the diocese, and he'll be, God willing, he'll feel fine, and he'll anoint the people at the vigil. So it's really worth coming, I think, to the vigil, and I'm glad you brought it up, because we should really point that out, that even though the presence of the hierarch doesn't change the vigil a lot, not as much as, for instance, the liturgy is changed at a hierarchical divine liturgy, still it's a really nice opportunity to be there and to sort of pray together with the hierarch. And hierarchs are the successors of the apostles, and it's a very rare and great opportunity to have one to visit the parish. So Metropolitan Jonah came for our feast in July, and he had a nice visit, and everyone liked him, and he seems to at least be able to tolerate us, and so he's willing to come back to help prepare us for Great Lent.
Okay. And so that's a 5 p.m.
Right.
Start for Vigil, and
Correct.
9 a.m. on Sunday for liturgy?
Yep.
Right.
We go an hour early for both of those. It just makes it that much easier to have everything done and not have to rush.
Okay. But so he shows up for liturgy, and then we read the hours. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. The bishop, the hierarch, arrives. He's brought into the church. The entrance prayers are read. Then he's vested in the middle of the church. And I think we probably say this every time, but we have to say it again. It's really something that people should be participating in. They should be there when the hierarch is vested in the middle of the church. It's so neat. It's so interesting. So I hope that people will be able to do that, to be able to participate. Then the hours are read, and if there are any tonsures, which I don't think there will be, that's done at that time, and then the liturgy begins. So we start at 9, and that's the entrance of the bishop, and even though that's an hour earlier than we usually start, that's an hour well spent for folks to come an hour early.
Okay. And who vests
the
hierarch?
The subdeacons vest the hierarch, and in the contemporary church, the subdeacon's ministry is basically connected with the hierarch. We have several subdeacons in our parish, and that's very nice. It allows us to do things like they are able to change the covers on the altar table and so on and so forth, because they're allowed to touch the altar table. But practically speaking, subdeacon's main ministry in our days is to serve with the bishop, to vest the bishop, to hold his decuri and tricuri, and to sort of serve the hierarchical service with him. In the ancient church, when the deacons would call for the catechumens to leave, the subdeacons would go throughout the people, make sure all the catechumens were in fact out of the church and had begun their education. Then they would lock the doors and stand guard at the back of the church during the liturgy of the faithful.
What were they on guard against?
Well, at that time, it was especially important for the church that the mysteries not be revealed just to anyone off the street. Catechism at that time was similar to ours on one level in that it was educational, but it was educational both in the sort of facts of the faith, but also in the mysteries. There was a catechism of the mysteries, and so the catechumens did leave the church at that time. They were educated and catechized, but one of the things they were catechized about were the mysteries of the church, and only after they were baptized were they present for the liturgy of the faithful.
And that's why we have a liturgy of the faithful, and before that what is it called?
The liturgy of the word, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when the gospel and the epistle are read.
Everybody's
correct. That's a very educational piece, and everyone is there for that.
All right. So something else, the 12 great feasts.
Mm-hmm.
We have 12 months, so maybe there should be one for each month, but it doesn't work that way, does it?
It doesn't. The divine plan sometimes doesn't always make sense to our feeble human, abilities. Yeah. And it's true that they aren't spread out evenly throughout the year, but there's a kind of a cadence of the year where we have a feasting time, a fasting time, and the ebb and the flow. It actually has a very sort of comforting way that it brings us through the year, I think. So, although these feasts are not distributed evenly, nonetheless, when they come, it seems like it's the right time for them to be here.
So what are we looking at for February? Is it ebbing or flowing?
It's flowing. We have one. We have the meeting of the Lord, one of the 12 great feasts. And this is the feast where the Lord is brought to the temple, and this is very important, one of the 12 important great feasts of the year. So it's a very nice feast. It's one maybe that people don't engage with on the same level that maybe they engage with the Nativity or Theophany when we have the holy water. And what's neat about this feast is the name of it is already a bit of a misnomer, because it's called the meeting of the Lord, but it's actually more of a feast of the Mother of God. We even wear blue on this feast. So it's really the 40 days after birth, and the Mother of God comes to the temple, and Christ is there.
Okay.
I mean, it's one of those feasts that's kind of mixed, but in the entire sort of rendering of the thing, I think we could say that it's really probably even a little bit more a feast of the Mother of God than it is a feast of the Lord. So it's a very interesting one, and we hope that people will be able to attend that. It's a Monday this year, but the vigil will be on Sunday night, and so hopefully people will be able to at least attend one of those two.
It's Monday night?
No, the vigil is Sunday night, and the feast itself is Monday morning.
Okay. Could we also call it a feast of Saint Simeon? Or does he get his day on the Synax?
The Synax. It's the day after, yes. But of course, he plays a very major role there. I mean, he's been waiting for quite a long time by the time the Messiah is there, and he sees the Messiah.
And all because of a mistake in translation.
Right. Well, he was correcting something, or felt that he was correcting something. And, for those who don't know the story, the translation of the scriptures that the church uses for the Old Testament is called the translation of the 70, Septuagint. 6 translators were taken from each of the 12 tribes, and yes, the people did know how to do multiplication there. That makes 72, but during the translation 2 died, so it comes out to the translation of the 70. And Simeon's job was to translate the Isaiah, "Behold, a virgin shall be with child," and as he went to correct that, because of course that's not possible, an angel grabbed his hand and said, "Not only is that possible, but you will live to see it." And so at the feast of the meeting of the Lord, it is that same Simeon who is the translator from the 70 who meets the Lord at the temple and then the famous prayer of Saint Simeon, "Now lettest thou thy servant depart in peace." He can now depart this life in peace, having waited for this several hundred years for the Messiah to come into the world.
And what tribe was Saint Simeon from? Do
You know what? I don't know. We'll have to. That'll have to be one of those Monday questions for the email. That's a good one. I like the ones where I don't know the answer, so I'll find out and then we'll ask.
I got a million of them.
Okay, that's good. No, that's a good one. I like that.
So they were translating from the Hebrew to what?
To Greek.
Koine?
No, to the Greek, because I mean, at that time, basically the Hebrews weren't using Hebrew anymore, and it was important that people be able to understand the scripture, and so they decided that they needed to translate it into the Greek that they were familiar with.
It happened in Egypt, actually.
Correct, yeah. That is correct.
Okay, well, I always like that feast.
Me too.
I'm looking forward to it. There are some notable saints this month, such as...
Well, I think probably we should... since in our studio audience today we have your wife, who is named after Saint Xenia, we should probably mention Saint Xenia, and of course she's also the heavenly protectress of our sisterhood, and so that's on February 6th, and that's a Saturday this year, which is great. So hopefully a lot of people can come to the liturgy that morning, and we'll have the I think it is a vigil, or maybe it's Vespers and Matins, I don't remember. But anyway, evening services the night before at 6 o'clock, and 8 o'clock on Saturday the 6th we'll have Divine Liturgy. And then the Sisterhood has their annual meeting right after that. So it's a big day.
For the sisters.
For the sisters it's a big day. But Saint Xenia, is really venerated by a lot of people in our parish, men and women alike.
Yeah. So,
I think that should be a very nice day. I'm really looking forward to that.
Mm-hmm. Any other saints worthy of mention?
Well, usually, St. Gregory the Theologian is the day after St. Xenia, but this year he has to move. And the reason for that is that day is the Sunday of All Saints of Russia. And so St. Gregory is going to get moved to Monday. So that'll be a big weekend for us, because we'll have liturgy Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
So who doesn't like to share, the All Saints or Gregory?
Well, I think they like to share, but when you lay out the service, and there are a certain number of slots that can be filled with stichira, let's say, either one of those is going to fill them all, either St. Gregory or the New Martyrs, right? So they can't really be served on the same day.
And you got to do both.
Well, I think you do. Saint Xenia is our sisterhood feast day. The next day, New Martyrs of Russia, that's Bishop Peter's names day, and then the day after that, that'll be my names day. So it's a nice names day kind of weekend for us.
You have a names day this month.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And who is your Saint Gregory?
Theologian.
Okay. He was a bishop.
He was a bishop, yeah, a very important bishop.
Yeah.
Well, during the Arian controversy, he was Archbishop of Constantinople. At that time, that was not a patriarch. He was Archbishop. And really very important theological person. There are only three saints in the entire history of the church that have the appellation.
Wait, I can do this.
Okay.
St. John the Divine.
Yep.
Gregory the Theologian.
Yep.
And Simeon.
Correct, the new theologian.
But
yes.
Not the meeting in the temple.
No, not that one, a different one. Could have been named after that one. But yeah, so it's, of course, poor St. Gregory has to have me named in his honor, but hopefully that's not too bad for the saint. But he is really a great and very important saint. His orations are really very important. And nicely, there is a small book, one of those St. Vladimir Seminary Press small books, bigger than a booklet, but a small book that has some of his most famous orations, one on Nativity, one on Pascha, and he also has a really important treatise about the priesthood that we have the students read in the pastoral theology class. So really important saint, and so I'm very honored to be named after him, and so we have our practice to serve liturgy on this day in our parish.
That'll be Monday?
It'll be a Monday, yeah.
Okay. So if somebody were to think about reading some of St. Gregory, you would tell them orations is the place
I would
to start?
probably start with that, yeah, I think that's right. I mean, he was a very, very educated person. I mean, he and St. Basil the Great went to Athens to learn everything that could be learned in the world at that time. they came as students and they left being the teachers of their professors. I mean, they were the most brilliant people in the world at that time, in the known world in any case. And both of them put that incredible knowledge that they had to use for the glory of God in the church. And so I think for us living in an academic city, I think that's a really great example. And I hope that St. Gregory, St. Basil, St. John Chrysostom will be real examples to people of seeing how you can take the learning of the world and use that for the glory of God in the church.
So those three hierarchs that you mentioned, maybe they should get their own day.
I think that's a good idea.
All three of them
together,
commemorated together.
Axis. I think that's a good idea, and I'm happy to say that the church had that idea a long time before we did, and so on the 12th of February each year, we have the Feast of the Three Hierarchs.
Oh, so it's a thing.
It is a thing.
Already.
Yeah, it's a thing.
How
already.
long have they been doing that?
Oh, gosh. Hundreds of years.
Oh.
Maybe not 1,000 years, but hundreds of years for sure. And
it was a good idea.
I think it's a good idea, and it's kind of the patron feast day of those who study theology. So, for instance, in Jordanville, that's the kind of a very big feast day there, because that's in the seminary there. We decided, well, Bishop Peter decided and blessed us to name our seminary after St. John of Kronstadt, and so we had a big celebration of St. John in early January in Chicago. But so that's a really important day, and God willing, we're planning to have liturgy that day.
February 12th.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Are we? Think we can leave saints?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think we can. I
Probably
mean, there's lots of good ones in
good
February,
ones left.
but I think we can go on. Sure.
But we have this February this year is this sort of pre-Lenten kind of warming up for.
Yeah, it's unusual. Usually by the end of February we're in Great Lent, we're basically there. But
we have a late Pascha.
We have a late Pascha, yeah. So we still have till the Lent doesn't begin till the 14th of March. Oh, we should mention about the calendar.
What happened?
2 cheese fairs.
Oh, what a great idea!
I like
double
the idea.
blini.
Yes, I like the idea myself, but that's probably above our pay grade to make that decision.
Somebody apparently made it.
Somebody did make that decision, and on the calendars that we sent to all of our parishioners, the yearly calendars, it does say that there are 2 cheese fair weeks, but in fact that's not the case. So we want to alert people to the fact.
So the last one is probably the real cheese.
The last one is the real one. I mean, for those who really love blini, they can take advantage of that. But in any case, there is only one cheese fair week, and it's the one that comes right before the beginning of Great Lent. So the one that ends with March 13th.
Okay, March 13th. Publican and the Pharisee.
Yes.
Tell about that and why it was put where it was, and how are we? What's the spiritual sort of, what do they call it? The mystical participation in that sort of journey. How does?
Right. Well, so in February we will be beginning the Great Lenten Triodian. Right, so we won't begin Great Lent, but the Lenten Triodian starts to be used just on the Sundays.
It starts with that publican?
It does. I mean, Zacchaeus is kind of like it's not really in there, but that's
is he in the book?
He's not. It's not in the Lenten Triodian, but that's really that's always that Sunday before we begin the Lenten Triodian. So it really has that feeling of like, wow, we're there. You hear Zacchaeus, we're getting ready.
But so it's like a movable thing. It's attached to.
Yes, it's attached. It's attached to Pascha. Yep.
So where does it go? What book was it go in, that service? It's not in the Lenten?
Well, I mean, it is kind of, I guess, from that point of view, but I don't think it's actually written in the Lenten Triodian. I actually have to look, but for sure, by the Publican and the Pharisee, we're into the Lenten Triodian, right? And this first official Sunday of the Lenten Triodian, we begin with Publican and Pharisee to start us in the right direction. Fasting is coming, spiritual struggle is coming, and this story of the publican and the Pharisee helps us to understand how we're to engage in that, right? Because here we have this publican, this tax collector, this apostate, this sinner, and he's got
the right attitude.
Exactly. And he's the one who is justified by his prayer in the temple, not the righteous who goes up and, as it says in the gospel, prays to himself. Really like that, how it gives us that, he's not praying to God, prays to himself about how good he is, how he fasts, how he tithes, and so on and so forth. But he has the wrong approach. Pride is stealing away from him every single good work that he has. The publican, he's a sinner, but he knows it. And I think this is really important for us because we are sinners too. And God's grace can be attracted to the humility that comes with real repentance as much or maybe even more so than righteousness, right? We always want to do good. But if we are doing good with great pride, it's all being stolen away from us like it was from the Pharisees. So I think this is a really, really important Sunday. And clearly the church fathers thought so too, because this whole week is a non-fasting week. Not to reward us, but to remind us that the Pharisee fasted with pride, and therefore we don't fast this week, to remind us
He was smug.
That's right. Not to be a smug Pharisee, not to fast like a Pharisee when Lent comes. So this is I think it's nice to have a week which is not fasting, but this one is a real, after Pascha we don't fast for a week. It's kind of like relax a little bit after the great big Lent.
I mean,
this one is more of a teaching thing.
They don't throw those fast-free weeks around
willy-nilly
in the year. There are, maybe 4?
Yeah, they're very rare. Yep, I think there are 4, and this is really meant to drive home that point. Don't fast with pride, and I think that's an important thing to start the Lenten Triodian with, to right from the beginning, to get ourselves ready. That in 4 weeks, when we are really beginning the Lent, we're going to do this with humility. So,
okay, what comes after what's the next Sunday? Does that fall in February?
Yep, Prodigal Son.
Oh, the Prodigal Son.
Yep. Great, very important Sunday. Actually, I read a book this year, a catechism of the church, which was based only on the Prodigal Son. Really, really interesting. An entire catechism. Really, really liked it. In fact, we need to get one for the library. In any case, this is a very important teaching of the church about God's mercy and God's love and God's willingness to accept those who repent. And I think the really most powerful image that we have in this gospel is, as soon as the prodigal son breaks the top of the hill, the father goes out to him. And that's really important in our spiritual lives. God is not standing up there, tapping his foot, waiting for us. We take a step towards him, and he comes to us.
That's what the older brother's doing. He's the foot tapper.
He is a foot tapper. He is, and that's always our temptation. Those who are in the church, new person comes, repents, brought into the church, and we are kind of sitting there. Well, we know what kind of life this guy was living, but God is forgiving. God is welcoming. God is loving, and this is a really important gospel for us. So one of my favorites, I would say.
Okay. I was just thinking, it seems... Oh, that's a good idea, too. That's not the only time in the year that we hear that gospel reading. When are the other...
No, that's the only time.
No.
It's just that we just refer to it so many times. I'm sure that in my sermons I must refer to the prodigal son gospel once a month, maybe. I mean, that and the one of the talents seem to be the ones that people refer to so often. So, yeah, just that one time is read. It's powerful enough to carry through the year.
Okay. So that's the 27th and the 28th. And then we're all... it's not leap year, is it?
Oh, yeah, it is. We have a 29th.
Oh,
We have a 29th.
So what saint goes on the 29th?
Oh, I looked. I think it's Paramon. We'll have to check, actually. But in any case, I'm kind of tempted. We may have a Maleben that day just to serve on the 29th, because we only get a chance to do that every 4 years. So
who's Paramon?
I don't know his life, but I will by the time
Greek,
we do the Maleben.
Egyptian, Syrian?
I think he is Egyptian, yeah.
Oh, one of the desert fathers?
I believe so. Okay. So I have to read it, but I think that, it's a leap year, it's rare we get this opportunity to serve on the 29th, so I think we may do that.
Okay. What else can we talk about?
Oh boy. Well, this preparation for Great Lent is really, I think, important, and I hope that people will start to participate in the services. We are really, I would say, blessed. We have the opportunity in our parish to do a lot of the Lenten services and a lot of these pre-Lenten services. If we show up at the beginning of Great Lent, we're still going to get a lot out of it. But certainly the church didn't give us all these preparatory Sundays so that we could just kind of not be attentive to it. Those are there for our edification. And the hymnography of the church begins to change already. We're singing By the Rivers of Babylon at the all-night vigil. There are some really important things that are happening here. And so this is a great time for people to engage the divine services, I think, and participate in that theology in action that the divine services are. So I hope that folks will sort of set aside at least one or two of those Saturday nights in these preparatory times to be at the vigil and to participate in the services. It will not be time wasted.
Okay. You know what else folks can do?
What can they do?
In February?
Yes.
No, guess.
Oh, well, there's a lot of things. Super Bowl's in February.
Church stuff, Father.
Oh, sorry.
Get their house blessed.
That is a great idea.
I heard that's a little side business that you have.
Well, we do that. In fact, we did it here tonight. My memory is short, but it's
right.
It's good, but it's short.
Yeah, it's coming back to me.
Yeah, I remember. The cat was here and the dog, and every year, people have their homes blessed at this time, and I think it's a really important, I would argue, preparatory period for Great Lent. This is a time when the family can come together, the house is blessed, people get a chance to kind of really sit down and spend a little time together because usually we're going in 87 different directions as a family. This is a great time to have one of those evenings together, to invite the priest, to have the house blessed with the waters that were sanctified at the feast of Theophany. And it even basically flat out says it in the prayers as we're blessing the water, that these waters are to be used for the blessing of homes, for the healing of infirmities and so on and so forth. But it just lays it out there that this is an expectation. And I mean, if I had my druthers, I would like to see everybody in the parish do that every year. I just feel like it's a great opportunity spiritually to come together and to get ourselves in the right place so we're ready to head for Great Lent. So yeah, I hope everybody will do that. And we published online, and we also put it up in the church, the dates and times when I know that I'm going to be available, and I could be available other times too. But if folks can choose from those times, that would be great. So
set something up.
Schedule
a house bless.
Please do, and try to schedule with people who live around you. If you live far away, I mean, if you live in town, it's not a big deal. But if you live far away and there's another person
like Pittsburgh
there,
or something,
right? Pittsburgh, Miami. If there's somebody else there from the parish, try to set up so that I only have to do that trip once if possible.
Yeah. Okay. English. Are we still doing English?
Absolutely.
Services?
Every month. Unfortunately, we had to cancel January because I got sick. But we are doing it every month, and this month it will be Saturday, the 20th of February.
Just liturgy?
No, we'll do the evening service too.
The 19th.
And on Friday, on the 19th.
Okay.
So it's the 19th evening, 20th morning.
Now, I've been wanting to ask, when you say all English, it's not exactly all English, right? Or is it?
Yeah, it's all English. Every
English.
Single word of the entire service is done in English. Nobody ever lets
Господи помилуй slip.
Well, it does happen sometimes. I mean, it's so subconscious, but it doesn't invalidate the sacraments or anything that's happening there.
Nobody's complained if.
No, but we do try to do it in all in English. I think it's a really important missionary tool. It's a great opportunity to invite friends, loved ones, who sometimes will say, well, I would go there if only everything was in English. Okay, well it is. And here's a great opportunity, because once people do that, they realize that if we throw in a little Greek or a little Slavonic here, it's not the issue. But it's a great way to introduce people. So we hope that people will invite friends, loved ones, to come to these services and to engage the theology in action that is the divine services. Really, really important for us as Orthodox Christians to do that. Okay, well, Metropolitan, come in the 27th and the 28th. English cycle, 19th and 20th. I think Xenia, the 6th. What else? Meeting of the Lord. 15th.
Yeah. It's always on the 15th.
It is. Always on the 15th. Well, actually, no.
No. Uh-oh.
This is the only one that could move. If the 15th could be, if Pascha is super early, that could be in the first week.
And then what?
It gets moved to the Sunday of the Last Judgment. It gets moved to that Sunday, the day before Great Lent begins.
Okay. How often does that happen?
Rarely. It has happened...
Every 30 years? Every 100
maybe
years?
about every 10 to 15, let's say, I guess. I don't remember. I remember it only happening once since we've been here in Ann Arbor, and that's about 20 years almost. So
we're due for another one.
It just happened recently.
Oh.
But what's interesting, this is one little difference between Old Believers and our practice. They still leave it in the first week of Great Lent, if it falls there. We transfer it to the Sunday.
Now, why was the answer to that is usually that's what the Greeks were doing in the 17th century. But what was the thinking behind it? Is it easier to do with rubrics? Is it more
much
authentic?
easier if it's outside of Great Lent. Yeah.
Okay, but those Old Believers, they like the complicated stuff.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah, no.
We need that. I mean, that's important. They serve an important purpose, and but it is much easier if it's, and I mean, I get the idea. It makes good sense. You have the service. There's a clear break between this feast and the first week of Great Lent, which is quite repentant in its character. So makes sense.
Okay, I think either way is
Acceptable.
going to be very spiritually nourishing.
I would agree.
All right. And I wish you and all of our, I shouldn't say that kind of thing. You can ask, wish for spiritually nourishing
I think your
month
opinion
of,
is
I
valid.
can?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. A spiritually nourishing month to you, Father.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for joining me.
My pleasure. Thank you for welcoming me into your house.
Absolutely. And you, dear viewers, also wishing you a spiritually nourishing month, and catch you back here, or perhaps we'll have to do another one in Dexter at the parish church. We'll see. Until next time, goodbye.